All right, welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today, we're tackling the life of DMX.
Ooh, this is going to be good.
We've got a bunch of sources, biography stuff, some old news articles, but
We're not just listing off facts, are we?
no way, we're going deeper than that. How'd this kid from Yonkers, with all the hardships he faced, become a hip-hop legend? That's what we're here to find out.
That's what I love about these deep dives. It's the story behind the story, right?
Right.
Like with DMX, you've got this tough guy image, that aggression.
Which defined a whole era of hip-hop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But underneath, there's vulnerability, this constant search for meaning. That's what gets me.
Yeah, that contrast really comes through in the early life stuff. Born Earl Simmons, 1970.
Yonkers, New York. Not exactly easy street.
Understatement of the year. Poverty, violence. The sources say he was expelled from school at 10 years old. 10.
Makes those stories about him and the stray dogs even more powerful, doesn't it?
Totally. Most kids have pets, but for him, it sounds like those dogs were a lifeline.
Loyalty, companionship, something he probably craved.
Which is so different from the DMX we know from the music, right?
Absolutely. Tough, aggressive. But you're right, there's this yearning for something more, even way back then.
And then in his teens, things start shifting. 1985, he starts beatboxing for this rapper, Reddy Ron.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
The future DMX, beatboxing, learning the craft. But then prison, big turning point.
You think so? A lot of people would say prison just makes things worse.
Not for DMX. This is where he honed his skills, man. Battling other inmates, rapping.
Developing that unique style.
Spellbound, right.
Yeah.
Spelling out the words letter by letter. It wasn't just a gimmick, it added this intensity to his delivery.
And that's where the name comes from, right? DMX. I knew it was an acronym, but
And initially it was Divine Master of the Unknown. Pretty deep, right? But it evolved into Darkman X, reflecting that tougher persona.
But it wasn't like instant success after that. The early 90s seemed pretty quiet for him.
Slow burn, yeah. Local radio appearances mentioned in the source back in 91.
Which was huge GE back then.
It was the hip-hop magazine. So he was on the radar, but still grinding, paying his dues.
So when does it all explode? When does DMX go mainstream?
Oh man, his journey to success was kind of messy, like his life. Signed with Rough Riders, got dropped, went to Def Jam, then back to Rough Riders. It was back and forth.
A real hustle. But then 98 hits. Boom! It's Dark and Hell is Hot drops, debut album, and it goes straight to #1. 251,000 copies in the first week. Just insane.
That's massive. Even for established artists, that's a big debut.
Yeah.
But then, get this, same year, he releases Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood, another #1 debut. The only rapper at the time to do that, back to back. We're talking Tupac-level impact, but DMX was doing it while he was alive, dominating the scene.
Man, I remember those albums. That raw energy. Nothing else sounded like it.
But 1999, that's when he became a legend. And then there was X.
Hurry Up. That song was everywhere.
Crossover hit, man. It wasn't just hip-hop anymore, it was pop culture.
And the hits kept coming. The Great Depression, Grand Champ.
All debuting at #1. 5 consecutive #1 albums.
Yeah.
Never been done before in hip-hop.
Truly unprecedented. But it wasn't just the music, right? He was branching out, acting in movies.
Oh yeah, he's pushing boundaries. We're talking starring roles. Belly with Nas, Romeo Must Die, alongside Aaliyah.
Even Cradled to the Grave with Jet Li, he was a legit movie star.
And around this time, his faith starts becoming a bigger part of his public image.
Yeah, the whole reading the Bible daily, wanting to be a pastor thing, it was kind of surprising.
Right. You got this hard image, but this genuine spiritual seeking. It makes you think, you know.
Definitely. And DMX was a dad too. 15 kids.
A complex personal life for sure. Relationships, challenges, but we'll get into that later.
Right, we're here for the insights, not the gossip, but there's no avoiding it. There's a dark side to his story.
Yeah.
The addiction, the legal problems.
Can't shy away from that. It's part of who he was.
Starting with the crack cocaine addiction. Tragic. Started at 14. That casts a long shadow.
It does. Even with success, those inner demons can be tough to fight.
The sources mentioned so many arrests. Weapons charges, animal cruelty, drugs, reckless driving. It's a lot.
It became part of his image in a way. The troubled artist. But it was a burden, a constant struggle.
And then the tax fraud conviction in 2017. Prison time, even after getting sober. It's tough.
It shows that even when you're on top, life can throw curveballs.
It does. But DMX's story doesn't end there, does it? His music, it still hits hard, even after his death in 2021.
Oh, absolutely. And not just nostalgia. X, Give It to Ya in movies like Deadpool, that's a whole new generation discovering him.
That track is pure energy. And then the posthumous album Exodus in 2021, a final statement.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Knowing his whole story, does it change how you hear his music?
It's a great question. Can you separate the art from the artist? Does knowing his demons make his music more powerful or less? We'll leave you to ponder that.
Lots more to unpack, but for now, that's a good place to pause.
Join us next time. We'll keep going deeper into the world of DMX.
It's a tough one, right? Can you separate the art from the artist? Especially with someone like DMX, where his life was so intertwined with the music.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, listening to his tracks again. It's not just music. It's like raw emotion straight from his soul, the pain, the search for redemption. It's all there.
And that rawness is why people connected with him so strongly. He wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, to show those flaws, that darkness. We all have it, but most of us hide it.
His voice, too. Right, that rasp, the growls. It was primal, like something deep inside was just bursting out.
It's what critics call effect, the emotional tone of a performance. DMX's was off the charts. Just pure, unfiltered emotion pulling you in.
I know some people criticized him, said the lyrics were too violent, too aggressive, but I always felt like they missed the point.
Totally. It's about context. He wasn't glorifying violence. He was reflecting the reality he knew, the streets, the community. It was catharsis, processing the trauma.
But even in the darkest stuff, there's that undercurrent of faith, seeking something bigger than himself. It's not just anger, it's searching for meaning.
And that search took many forms. We talked about the Christianity, the wanting to be a pastor, but it's in the music too. Those prayers, the spiritual themes woven into the rhymes.
Like Slippin'. Man, that song gets me every time, feeling lost but still clinging to belief. You can hear it in his voice, that raw honesty.
Powerful stuff. And his faith wasn't static, it evolved. Questioning, wrestling with it, finding his own understanding.
And that's what makes him so relatable, right? He wasn't preaching from some high horse. He was down in the dirt with the rest of us trying to make sense of things.
And that's why the music still hits today. It's not just a product of its time, it's timeless. Pain, loss, hope. Those are universal.
He gave a voice to the people who felt voiceless, marginalized, forgotten. He spoke for them with that ferocity, that passion. You couldn't ignore it.
His legacy just keeps growing. More than a rapper, he was a cultural icon. Resilience in the face of adversity, showing that even in darkness, there's hope.
You know, we haven't even touched on his style yet. And that was a whole other statement.
Oh, yeah. More than just clothes, it was an image. Raw, streetwise. Resonated with so many people. Baggy sweats, fitted hats, the gold chains.
It was the yee look back then. Late 90s, early 2000s hip-hop.
Yeah.
DMX was at the forefront of that.
Those music videos, too. Gritty, urban. DMX and his crew rocking those looks is a whole visual language.
It was powerful, and young people connected with it. Rebellion, authenticity. They wanted to be like him, dress like him, embody that vibe.
It wasn't just the clothes, though. It was the attitude, the confidence, wearing those clothes like armor, a shield against the world.
Fashion as a language, right. Expressing identity, belonging. For DMX, it was an extension of the music, the personality, the whole worldview.
And we often overlook that. We focus on the music, the lyrics, but the visuals matter too.
Think about the impact. Those baggy silhouettes, Timberland boots, fitted caps, they're still around today. Symbols of a generation.
It's amazing how something like clothing can have that power. DMX used it to amplify his persona, his message.
And it all came back to authenticity. He wasn't faking it. He was true to himself.
Which is why he was so influential. Not afraid to be different, to challenge things, to express himself.
Powerful lesson for all of us, right? Be yourself. Embrace your individuality.
Now, I got to talk about his personal life and the complexities, the addiction. It was a constant struggle.
Yeah. It's a tough subject, but it's part of his story.
Addiction affects everyone, no matter who you are, how much money you have.
Starting with crack cocaine at 14, it's just tragic. It affected so many choices he made.
It's a reminder that success doesn't mean you're free from inner demons.
And it's important to approach this topic with sensitivity, you know. Addiction is complex. There are no easy answers.
Definitely. It's easy to judge, but we have to remember everyone is fighting their own battles. Empathy and understanding are key.
DMX was open about his struggles. He talked about it in his music and interviews. He tried to get help, went to rehab.
And that honesty probably helped other people who were going through the same thing. Took some of the stigma away.
It shows that getting help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
His legacy goes beyond the music. By talking about addiction, he helped raise awareness, maybe even save some lives.
Yeah, even facing those challenges, you can still find strength, reach out to others.
It's something to keep in mind as we dig deeper into DMX's life, He was full of contradictions, made mistakes, but also achieved amazing things.
It's about seeing him as a whole person,
Yeah.
right? Not glorifying or condemning, but understanding.
His story still resonates today. The music, the influence on fashion and culture, it's inspiring.
And speaking of inspiring,
Yeah.
his relationship with religion, he wasn't just a casual believer, he was devout. It added another layer to his persona.
It did. The tough rapper, but also deeply spiritual, it challenged people's perceptions of him.
Reading the Bible every day, even in prison, finding strength in his faith, a way to cope with the chaos of his life.
And he shared it with everyone. Music, interviews, even sermons.
It surprised some people, seemed contradictory to his image. But I think it shows the depth of his character, that search for meaning.
It's a good reminder that we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. DMX was multifaceted, and his faith was a genuine part of him.
It also shows how powerful faith can be, right? Providing comfort, guidance, hope.
That goes beyond specific religions. It's about that human need to connect to something bigger than ourselves. Finding meaning in a world that can feel overwhelming.
His faith wasn't just private, it was a public declaration. This is, I believe, this is what matters to me.
And it's part of his legacy, something to respect, even if it makes us question what we thought we knew about him.
It reminds us that even the toughest exterior can hide a heart-seeking connection, seeking redemption. We all have those layers.
It's a message that resonates even now. Look beyond the surface. See the richness and depth of the human spirit.
All right, so we've covered his faith, the music, the fashion, his struggles. But we can't forget about the relationships. DMX was a father, 15 kids from 9 different women. That's a lot to process.
It is. Shows his capacity for love, but also the challenges he faced with relationships.
His marriage to Tashara Simmons, they had 4 kids together. Even after the divorce, they seemed to maintain respect, a friendship.
That's mature, putting the kids first. Not easy to do, especially under public scrutiny.
But he also had kids with other women, which led to some legal issues, child support, custody battles.
Yeah, we don't need to get into the specifics out of respect for everyone involved.
Right. We're here to understand DMX as an artist, a cultural figure. But it's important to note that he loved his children.
He talked about them in interviews. They brought him joy, motivation.
Even amidst all the chaos, there were moments of genuine love, family connection.
It shows the human side of him, beyond the headlines. A capacity for love, even while dealing with his own demons.
It's a reminder that even the most famous people are still human. They have emotions, family dynamics, that need for connection.
Understanding that is key to understanding his legacy. Not just the musician, but the father, the flawed individual who touched so many lives.
And then there's the legal troubles. Can't really talk about DMX without acknowledging that.
It's part of his story for sure. Lots of run-ins with the law, drugs, animal cruelty, tax evasion. It's a long list.
It started early, even before he was famous. Juvenile detention, then it just kept following him throughout his career.
It's a tough lesson, right? Choices have consequences. Even when you reach the top, the past can catch up with you.
Some people said it was because of his upbringing, the poverty, the violence.
Context is important, but we still have to be accountable for our actions. The law applies to everyone.
He went to prison multiple times. It affected his career, his finances, his relationships.
It's a cautionary tale. Fame and fortune don't make you immune.
But even with all that, DMX expressed remorse. He wanted to turn things around, be a better example for his kids.
That desire for change matters too. It's never too late to seek redemption.
It's a message of hope. We can learn from our mistakes, try to build a better future.
It shows the resilience of the human spirit. We can change, even in the toughest circumstances.
The legal issues were a big part of his life, but they don't define him. He was complex, talented, flawed, but he wanted to be better.
We have to understand all sides of the story, the good and the bad, to really get him.
That's what makes him so compelling. It's not a simple narrative.
His story keeps fascinating people, provoking them, inspiring them. It's about struggle and triumph, darkness and light, the human condition.
And we'll keep exploring that in the final part of our deep dive. Stick around, there's still so much to uncover about DMX. Wow, we've really gone deep on DMX, haven't we? It's been intense, all those highs and lows, the struggles, the music, just this raw energy he had.
It really has. And I think we have to address it, right? His death. 2021, he was only 50. It was a shock.
It was. For a lot of people, it brought back memories, you know? His music was so huge back then, the soundtrack to our lives, good times and bad. It felt like losing a part of our youth.
That's the power of music, right? It connects us to those moments, feelings we thought we'd forgotten. And DMX.
Yeah.
His music had that honesty, that rawness. It just hit you on a different level.
He went to those dark places, expressed the pain, the anger, stuff we all feel but don't always talk about. He gave a voice to those emotions.
He spoke for the people who felt like no one was listening. The underdogs, the forgotten. He gave them hope.
And even though he's gone, his music is still here. It still inspires. It still challenges. That's real talent, true authenticity.
His legacy?
Yeah.
It's about resilience, overcoming the odds, finding strength even when you're vulnerable. And that message is just as important today as it was back then.
It goes beyond generations, beyond languages, even beyond music. It's about the human experience, the struggle, the striving, falling down and getting back up, finding your way when everything feels chaotic.
We've covered so much, haven't we? His music, his faith, the addiction, the relationships, the legal stuff, his style.
And it's obvious, DMX was complex, full of contradictions, highs and lows, but there was always that spark, that refusal to quit. That's what drew people to him.
He reminds us that we're all multifaceted, light and shadow, strong and vulnerable. We have to embrace that in ourselves and others. That's how we connect, how we understand each other.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's think about DMX's impact. What did he leave behind?
Let's remember that raw talent, the honesty, the vulnerability. He didn't hide from his struggles, but he also achieved great things. Let's see him as a real person, not a myth or a caricature.
Let's carry his message forward. Hope, redemption, strength, and vulnerability. Using your voice to speak your truth no matter what.
Thanks for being here with us, exploring the life and legacy of DMX. Hopefully you've learned something new, seen him in a new light. He was more than just a rapper, he was a force.
He was. And that's it for this deep dive. But keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep digging deeper. There's always more to discover.